Hello. This will be Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, Book 7, with comments afterwards. One. What is evil? You have looked on it often, so whatever happens, remind yourself that you've seen it all before, up and down the stages of history, ancient, medieval, and modern. In great cities and humble households, you will see the same scenes played out, none of them new, all fleeting, all familiar. Number 2. How can the general rules by which we live perish unless the particular circumstances which they govern cease to be? It is up to you to keep those circumstances alive by continually recalling what they are. On any subject, you are thereby capable of forming the right opinion and of making a sound judgment, so why should you be afraid? If it cannot be brought to mind, it need not concern you. Understand this, and you have nothing to fear. It is in your power to restore life simply by reviewing the life you've lived. This is what it means to live again. 3. Empty pomp, stage plays, flocks of sheep and herds of cows, mock battles, a bone flung to lapdogs, a breadcrumb tossed into a fish pond, the ceaseless toil of ants bearing their burdens, the flight of frightened mice, puppets dancing on their strings. Such is life. Your job is to take your place amidst it all with a mild manner and without condensation. Bear in mind that the measure of a man is the worth of things he cares about. Condensation? 4. Weigh each word being said. Watch each move being made. In action, figure out the aim of each move. In speech, know the meaning of every word. 5. Is my mind up to this task or not? If it is, I shall use it to do the work as one would a tool supplied by nature. If not, I will leave the job to someone better able to accomplish it, or if that is not possible, I will do it as best I can with the help of someone who, with my guidance and support, can complete a timely and useful work for the community. But in whatever I do, whether on my own or with someone else, my one objective will be this and only this, to benefit and to live in harmony with the community. Part 6. How many once-sung heroes are consigned to oblivion? How many singers of their praises are no more? 7. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. Take on life's tasks with the resolve of a soldier storming the beach. So what if you are lame and cannot scale the wall alone? Does your lameness prevent you from finding someone to help you? 8. Don't fear the future. You will face it, if that is your fate, armed with the same reason that protects and guides you in the present. 9. All things are woven together and they make a sacred pattern. One might almost say that no one thing is entirely at odds with any other thing. All the parts are arranged in relation to one another, and together they form one beautiful and orderly whole. For there is one universe made out of all things, one God pervading it all, one being and one law, one reason common to all intelligent creatures, and one truth. If creatures sharing similar origins and the same reason can be said to partake of one idea of perfection. Part 10. Universal being soon swallows up its material children. Universal reason quickly reclaims its lost causes, and buried in eternity is the memory of it all. 11. To a rational creature, natural acts are also reasonable ones. 12. Straight or set straight. 13. Rational creatures are to one another as body parts are to a single organism. Reason enjoins them to cooperate in pursuit of a single aim. This idea will strike home closer the more you remind yourself, I am a body part in the single organism of all intelligent life. But in saying this, in describing yourself as a mere part, rather than as an integral member, you show that you don't yet love men from the heart. You don't yet take delight in doing them good without consideration of their deserving or your reward. Doing good to others is still a duty, not yet a service unto yourself. 14. Let come what may to those who are affected by outward circumstance. They will always find something to complain about. For myself, if I choose not to view whatever happens as evil, no harm will come to me, and I can so choose. 15. No matter what anyone else does or says, I must be good. It is as if gold or an emerald or purple dye were perpetually telling itself, no matter what anyone may do or say, I must be an emerald and keep my color. 16. My mind, as an instrument of reason, doesn't invent its own trouble, doesn't frighten or seduce itself. If there is something else that can frighten or harm me, then let it be so. But under no circumstance will the assumptions and imaginings of my own mind lead me to feel fear or pain. Let the body guard itself against pain, and if it suffers, let its parts proclaim it. But the mind, that alone can apprehend fear and pain, does not itself suffer, and is not inclined to acknowledge either. The mind, as an instrument of reason, lacks nothing except what it might imagine itself to lack. Consequently, if it refuses to create troubles and impediments for itself, it cannot be troubled or impeded. 17. Happiness is the inner deity, the goodness of pure mind. What are you doing here, imagination? Get out. In God's name, by whatever way you came in, I don't need you. You're just a bad old habit. Really, I'm not angry with you. I just want you to go. 18. Is it change that you fear? But what can happen without it? What is dearer to nature or more vital to the universe? Look at everything that sustains you. Can you take a warm bath if the wood you burn to heat the water doesn't change? Can you digest your food if it doesn't change? Can any of your needs be met without change? Don't you see, then, that the change resulting in your death is no different, and similarly feeds the life of the universe? 19. Being is like a violent mountain stream, in which every part shares the same watery nature and cooperates in the torrential activity of the whole, as do the members of our body with one another. Consider how many a Chrysippus, a Socrates, an Epicurus, and Epictetus time has already engulfed and swept away. Whatever your business, whatever you are dealing with, remember how similar, transient, and integral everything is. 20. One thing alone troubles me, the thought that I might do what my true self does not will, or that I might do what it wills in the wrong way or at the wrong time. 21. Soon you will have forgotten everything, and everyone will have forgotten you. 22. It is within a man's power to love even those who sin against him. This becomes possible when you realize that they are your brothers, that they wrong you unintentionally or out of ignorance, that in a little while you and they will be dead, and above all, that they have not really hurt you so long as you have not sullied your conscience or damage your inner self by responding in kind. 23. Nature treats matter like wax, fashioning first a horse, then melting it down and using the same matter to form a tree, then a man, and later something else, each in turn existing for but an instant. Why should the dismantling of a box be any more threatening than its assembling? 24. Angry looks offend against nature. From the face that habitually wears a frown, beauty fades, and in the end vanishes beyond hope of ever being restored. From this fact, try to understand what is contrary to reason. Once awareness of sin is lost, what hope is there to go on living? "25. Everything you see will soon be transformed by nature into something new, and that, in turn, will be changed into something newer, and that again into something newer still, that this ancient earth might be forever young." 26. When someone wrongs you, ask yourself, what made him do it? Once you understand his concept of good and evil, you'll feel sorry for him and cease to be either amazed or angry. If his concept is similar to yours, then you are bound to forgive him, since you would have acted as he did in similar circumstances. But if you do not share his ideas of good and evil, then you should find it even easier to overlook the wrongs of someone who is confused and in a moral muddle. 27. Don't hanker after what you don't have. Instead, fix your attentions on the finest and best that you have, and imagine how much you would long for these if they weren't in your possession. At the same time, don't become so attached to these things that you would be distraught if you were to lose them. 28. Seek refuge in yourself. The knowledge of having acted justly is all your reasoning inner self needs to be fully content and at peace with itself. 29. Stop fantasizing. Cut the strings of desire that keep you dancing like a puppet. Draw a circle around the present moment. Recognize what is happening, either to you or to someone else. Dissect everything into its causal and material elements. Ponder your final hour. Leave the wrong with the person who did it. 30. Focus on what is being said. Enter with your mind into what is being done and into the mind of the person doing it. 31. Let your face shine with simplicity, modesty, and indifference to whatever is neither virtue nor vice. Love your fellow man, walk with God, all things are governed by laws, said Democritus. It is enough to remember that there are but two laws, the moral laws of the gods and the physical laws of the atoms. These two are sufficient. 32. On death. If the universe is composed only of diverse atoms, death is dispersion. If the universe is really one unified whole, death is extinction or transfiguration. 33. On pain. Unbearable pains end in death. Those that linger and persist are bearable. The mind remains calm by withdrawing from the body, and the inviolable inner self is not diminished in any way. Let the dumb body parts affected by the pain make complaint or plead their case if they can. 34. On fame. Look at the minds of those who crave renown, what they run from, what they chase after. As sand by the sea is continually drifting and covering old dunes with new ones, so in life former glories are quickly hidden by those that come after. 35. Do you imagine that a man with true greatness of soul, someone with a vision of all time and a grasp of all things, attaches much importance to the short life of a single person? Impossible, he answered. Will the thought of death terrify such a man? Not in the least. A quote from Plato. 36. It is the fate of kings to do men good and to be hated for it. A quote from Antisthenes. 37. What a shame that the mind can command the face to assume whatever look or expression it pleases, but cannot command itself and govern its own thoughts. 38. Things upset you? Why? It's nothing to them. A quote from Euripides' Bellerophon. 39. To the deathless gods and to us bring joy. A quote from an unknown poet. 40. Lives cut down like ripened corn. This one passed over, that one shorn. A quote from Euripides' Hypsipyle. Hypsipyle? 41. Even the gods' terrible neglect of me and my sons must have its reasons too. A quote from Euripides' Antiope. 42. Goodness and justice side with me. A quote from Aristophanes' Charnians. 43. Not wailing with the grief-stricken, not quaking with the fearful. Quote from an unknown poet. 44. I might in all fairness reply by saying, you are wrong, my friend, if you think that a man who is worth anything weighs his chance of living or dying when deciding what to do. No. He considers only whether the action he is about to take is just or unjust, the work of a good man or bad. A quote from Plato's Apology, the words of Socrates. 45. As I see it, my fellow Athenians, here's how it is. Wherever a man takes his stand, whether in accordance with his own best judgment or in obedience to his commander's orders, that's where he needs to plant his feet and face every danger, careless of death and of everything but dishonor. Quote from Plato's Apology, the words of Socrates. 46. But consider, my good friend, whether to be noble and good may require something other than preserving your own skin or saving someone else's. Won't the real man dismiss any consideration of how long he may live and, not clutching at life, be happy to leave this up to God? Won't he accept the saying of women that no one ever escaped his fate, and then go on to examine how best to live whatever time he has left? A quote from Plato's Gorgias. 47. Fly with the stars in their courses, and swim among the ever-changing elements in their fluid transmutations. Imaginings like these will wash away the filth and grime of this earth-bound existence. 48. According to a lovely saying by Plato, anyone who aspires to make observations about mankind should look upon the human scene as if from some lofty height. Herds, armies, farms, weddings and divorces, births and deaths, the cacophony of law courts, and the stillness of wilderness areas, people of every hue and stamp, celebrating and mourning, buying and selling, their harmonious hodgepodge of life, the order built of opposites. 49. Look at the past with its endless succession of empires, and you see the future. The two are the same, since there is no way of escaping the changeless rhythm of the present. Study man for 40 years or for 10,000, it's all the same. What more can you expect to see? 50. What earth bears is to earth borne back, and what grows from celestial seed is harvested in the heavens. A quote from Euripides' Chrysippus, the words of Anaxagoras. In other words, the bonds of matter melt away and the basic elements disperse. 51. Also, trying with food and drink and magic spells to dam life's natural flow and not to die. A quote from Euripides' Supplicants. Or, feeling God's headwind beating on our backs, we pull harder at our oars and make no complaint. Quote from an unknown poet. 52. Faster to the takedown. He may be a better wrestler, but not more public-spirited, modest-minded, prepared to meet the whims of fate, kindly disposed to those who err or offend. Part 53. When a good work can be accomplished by using the same reason common to both men and gods, you have nothing to fear. When you can be of service by doing something well and in keeping with the law of your being, no harm will come to you. 54. It is within your power, always and everywhere, to be content with what the gods have given you, to deal justly with people as you find them, and to guard your thoughts against the intrusion of untested or inchoate ideas. 55. Don't look to the actions and opinions of others for guidance, but fix your eyes on nature, which reveals both the nature of the circumstances surrounding you and the nature of what you need to do. Each person must act as the law of his being dictates. Irrational beings are made for rational beings and constituted in such a way that in each instance, the inferior serves the interest of the superior, while rational beings are made for one another. The first law of man's being, then, is his sense of kinship. Following close behind, the second law is his resistance to physical forms of persuasion. Reasonable and intelligent men define their own limits and are not moved beyond them by exterior forces or interior instincts. These influence us as they do animals, but our intellect will seek to rule and not be made subjects to them, and this is as it should be, since the law of our being declares that we are to use and not be used by them. The third law of a rational being is resistance to hate and deception. Let the well-ordered mind obey these three laws and not deviate from this path, and it will take possession of all that belongs to it. (56) Imagine you have died and have received the gift of a new life. Live it, full of wondrous gratitude in sweet accord with nature. 57. Cherish the life you have been given and all that is woven into your destiny, but no more. After all, what could suit you better? 58. In every crisis, bear in mind the examples of those who, in similar circumstances, lost control of themselves, were taken by surprise, or complained bitterly. Where did their actions get them? Nowhere. Do you want to end up in the same place? Why not leave these emotional outbursts to those who are controlled or distracted by them? Concentrate instead on taking advantage of the crisis, using it as raw material with which to build something beautiful and good. Just remember that in the end, you must approve of your own actions and that the aim of the action also matters. 59. Dig down within yourself. The fount of goodness lies within and will keep flowing as long as you keep digging. 60. Whether standing or reclining, control the body's posture by not slouching or sprawling. Just as you can read a person's intelligence and character in his face, you can see them in the way he holds his body, but these appearances should be preserved without conscious effort. 61. Living is more like wrestling than dancing. You have to stay on your feet, ready and unruffled, while blows are being rained down on you, sometimes from unexpected quarters. 62. Reflect carefully on those whose good opinion you cover and on what motivates them. If you examine the reasons for their likes and dislikes, you will not blame them for failing to speak well of you, nor will their praise mean much to you. 61. No one, said Plato, knowingly chooses to live without the truth, without justice, wisdom, compassion, and the like. Keep this thought perpetually in mind, and you will treat everyone more gently. 64. Whenever you suffer pain, keep this thought handy. Pain is nothing to be ashamed of, nor can it impair your mind, at least not the mind's ability to reason and to fulfill its social obligations. In most cases, the words of Epicurus will help you. Pain is never unbearable or unending, as long as you are mindful of its limits and bridle your imagination. Remember, too, that many of life's little discomforts and irritants, although we do not recognize it, are mild forms of pain. Drowsiness, for example, or feverishness, or loss of appetite. Whenever you are attacked by one of these, say to yourself, I am surrendering to pain. 65. Not feel for misanthropes what they feel for mankind. 66. How do we know that Telegus, Pythagoras' son, was not a better man than Socrates? It proves nothing to say that Socrates died a more glorious death, or debated more adroitly with the sophists, or showed more toughness in mounting the guard on a frosty night, or that he valiantly disobeyed the order to arrest Leo the Salaminian, or that he walked with his nose in the air. Although we may doubt this last report of Aristophanes, all these considerations are really beside the point, which is, what sort of soul did Socrates possess? Did he find happiness in treating others fairly and in showing reverence to the gods? Or did he allow the wickedness of others to exasperate him and their ignorance to enslave him? Did he accept his lot in life, regarding it not as something unnatural or intolerable, while preserving his mind from the passions of his body? (67) Nature did not join the mind to the body so thoroughly that the mind cannot know itself apart from the body and rule what belongs to it. Never forget this, and remember, too, on how little your happiness depends. You may not have what it takes to be a profound thinker or a brilliant scientist, but you can still be a free man who respects himself, gives generously to others, and obeys God. It is even possible to be God-like without being recognized for these divine attributes. 68. Live freely and joyfully, even if you are surrounded by those who plot and shout against you, even if wild beasts claw away the soft clay that encases you. In the midst of all this, what prevents the mind from remaining calm, sizing up the situation correctly and seizing whatever opportunities present themselves? Now, your theoretical judgment will say, this is the reality of the situation, regardless of what others may think or say. And your practical sense will say to the opportunities that arise, there you are, I was looking for you. For every moment provides us with opportunities to exercise the virtues of neighborliness and thought, or in other words, to practice the art of being human and divine. All that happens is of use to gods or men. Nothing is new or unmanageable. Everything is familiar and serviceable. 69. To live each day as if it were your last, without speeding up or slowing down or pretending to be other than what you are, this is perfection of character. 70. You don't hear the gods, who must endure forever, complaining about all the nonsense they have to put up with at the hands of so many worthless creatures. On the contrary, they look after them in 1,000 different ways. So by what right do you, whose end is just a few heartbeats away, grow weary and make excuses, you who are yourself one of those worthless creatures? 71. How ridiculous not to avoid wronging others, which I have the power to do, while wishing to avoid being wronged by others whose actions are beyond my control. 72. Whatever your reasoning and social faculty finds unintelligent or unneighborly, it rightly judges to be inferior to itself. 73. When you have done something well and someone else has benefited from it, why do you crave yet a third reward, as fools do, who want to be thanked or to be repaid? 74. No one tires of being helped, and acts that are consistent with nature, like helping others, are their own reward. How, then, can you grow tired of helping others when by so doing you help yourself? Finally, 75. Once universal nature decided to create a world, the slightest subsequent event became the logical and necessary consequence of that original impulse. Otherwise, even the most monumental events bearing the stamp of universal reason are fundamentally unintelligible. Remember this, and you will remain calm in the face of life's little ups and downs. I'm trying to stand up straight here. Don't always remember to hold my shoulders back and whatnot. Okay, so some thoughts. Once again, I won't go over every single line, but I've marked a few of them. So this one bit here, what is evil? This is number one. You have looked on it so often, so whatever happens, remind yourself that you have seen it all before. Up and down the stages of history, ancient, medieval, and modern, in great cities and humble households, you will see the same scenes played out, none of them new, all fleeting, all familiar. And this really hits home when you are reading books like these, and he mentions something and you recognize that in your own life. Or when you read a history book, and you have a story of Nebuchadnezzar or Ramses III, or Mongol hordes invading Russia, or democratic representation debates and riots and demonstrations in the Roman Republic, or stories about England, France, the United States from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You talk to grandparents and they mention something, you go, okay, I know what that's like. What is evil? I think we have a tendency to assume that we know what evil is, We can say, well, that's evil and that's evil. But then we encounter circumstances where all of a sudden we are confused and we don't know. So what's different? I would say that the difference is when we recognize evil, we can say, we've seen this before. I've heard this before. This has happened to me before. Or like I know a bully when I see one. I know a liar when I see one. I know someone who's trying to pull the wool over my eyes, or this sounds awfully like a statement someone else made. Or you're talking to someone, you recognize, oh, they're just throwing out a bunch of BS, or they don't know actually what they're talking about, or someone throws a fit, and you go, okay, I recognize the emotional frailty here, right? Because I've seen it before. Much, much more difficult to look at a present circumstance you've never ever encountered and immediately go, I got it. I understand this completely in a Zen-like fashion the moment I saw it, and it's also like nothing else I've ever seen before. How likely is that? Not very. So read history, educate yourself, and don't think that the great evils are so much different than the small evils. What is the difference between a genocide of an entire people and one person killing killing someone who upsets him? What is so different between political troubles in the ancient Roman Republic and political troubles in the modern United States? What is so different in Russia spreading westward as opposed to Russia spreading westward 400 years ago? What is so different in capitalism, communism, and then you read about slave revolts and peasant uprisings for the last 10,000 years going on? It's like that that book on taxes, and you read and go, oh, okay, this is something that we've been thinking about in many ways for centuries. I was watching on TikTok somewhere, and it was some guy in a talk show. It was one of those YouTuber talk shows where it's like 5 friends around in a room, and they each have microphones. And it was some Korean guy, and he starts to say, well, Koreans never had slavery, and it shows a clip of him reading like the Wikipedia article that talks about Koreans had slavery for 1,500 years, the longest unbroken chain of any nation in history. And he's like bursting into not quite tears, but he's just like, oh my god, he's like, oh, I feel so bad. Here I was defending my country, and then you learn the actual history of it. I think Americans do this, of course, too, right? You're like, oh, we're the greatest in the world. And you learn some actual history and you go, oh, wow, we suck. Or we have definitely sucked at some points. Why don't we focus on World War II? Yeah, that sounds better. But really, this advice here, you've already looked on it before. You've seen it all before. A bully on the stage of world politics is not so different than a bully in middle school. Someone who lies and deceives that it is a president or a senator or a mayor or a CEO is no different than your coworker who said they were going to do something and then didn't, leaving you on the hook for the issue. Don't think that great men and great events are not exactly what you experience in your daily life. And conversely, don't think that what you experience in your daily life is so far removed from those great events. Evil is evil, no matter what form it takes, but it can only take so many forms. Even when it's new evil borrows from the old. It builds on something, builds on a prejudice, on a fear, on a history or a story that says these people that were bad before are bad again. In a different form, of course, but still you recognize similarities. And when it comes to evil in yourself, like in the way we act and we move, how many of us know that we have a certain flaw? Like this is my flaw, and I consistently fail to exercise my best judgment or show my best self or act in the best way when I'm pressed in this upon this flaw, when I'm pressed in this direction. Right, like stick me in a crowd, ask me a question, and stress me out, and I'm gonna break out of it because my brain doesn't work too well in that situation. And I'm like, it could give me a few minutes to step outside and calm myself. And why do I do that? Because I know the flaws I have, so I say, how do I deal with these flaws? It's so frustrating when you see yourself make the same mistakes over and over again. But it's at least elucidatory. It educates you about who you are and what you do if you pay attention, right? If every day is new and you never remember who you are or what happened, then the advice here is do remember. Think. Are you upset? Have you been upset? You've been upset before. Are you sad? You've been sad before. Are you happy? You've been happy before. Why? What happened? Okay, this one part of the second one here, of number 2, it says, on any subject you are thereby capable of forming the right opinion and of making a sound judgment, so why should you be afraid? If it cannot be brought to mind, it need not concern you. How often do we act in such a way that we say to ourselves, I don't know the answer, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm going to screw this up like I screw everything up. And he's saying you are capable of forming a right opinion and making a sound judgment, right? In you slumbers the reason of all nature. And we're still going to make mistakes. We're still going to reason incorrectly. But what is the alternative, right? That you never make a move? That you feel you cannot begin to achieve goodness unless you have perfection? He's just saying that you are capable of doing right, making a good judgment, and so do the best you can. Trust yourself, because the alternative is no movement, no opinion, no judgment, is sitting silent like a rock, not living, not exercising your reason as a human being. And so you make mistakes. So what? You can learn from them. So you have the wrong opinions. So what? You can fix them. So you make bad judgments. At least you are trying, right? This is something that he doesn't really get into. But on a personal level, we want our intentions to matter. We want people to explain, I was only trying to help. And people might get mad and angry, and you don't have to say that, or that was rude, that was mean, or you just made things worse. But we were only trying to help, and at least we have that. At least we can tell ourselves that, because he's always going on about reason and rightness and whatnot. You have to act in the correct way. You have to try to be calm, try to understand what's going on, try not to be overwhelmed, try to recognize your own flaws, improve yourself always. But also, even when you are imperfect, move, because maybe you do make the right judgment. Maybe you make the right decision. And it is unfortunately a property of the world that you can do everything right and still lose. You can act perfectly, and the odds or the circumstances or other people's actions mean that something terrible still happens. But at least you were in there. At least you were in the fight. At least you were doing something. That's better than doing nothing. Because when you're doing nothing, you're not a human being, right? You don't even have the opportunity to improve. You're just a rock or a log. It is in your power, he says, to restore life simply by reviewing the life you've lived. This is what it means to live again. Make your mistakes, die, go to sleep, rest your eyes, wake up tomorrow, pick yourself up again, do better. This is the message he has again and again and again. Do better. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. But if you can tell yourself that at least I tried something, even if it failed, at least I learned from it, even if I did something bad, and it may take you a year, a decade, a lifetime to become a better person, but what about that one time you do actually achieve goodness, right? That you do make the right action, right? 1,000 years of failing, of messing up, of screwing yourself over, of hurting people and doing bad things, but maybe one time you make the right judgment. You have the right opinion. You make the perfect good action that helps somebody, and that goodness would never have happened at all if you hadn't learned and grown and exercised your reason for all those decades. Okay, so with 4, he says, weigh each word being said, watch every move being made, in action figure out the aim of each move, in speech know the meaning of every word. What I'm getting here is, you listen to a politician speaking, every word is intentional. Someone spent time poring over that speech, and even if they speak out extemporaneously, speak out at random and open, then every one of those words comes from their mouth. It expresses a aspect of their personality, their wants, their dreams, their opinions, their desires, their abilities. It can be easy to listen to a college professor speak and go, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about, or he doesn't understand me and my life. But do you understand his either? When I'm speaking and I say a lot of things that could be wrong, could be misinterpreted, I'm stuck in my own life, my own viewpoint, which it's very hard to get out of. Why am I saying these things? What am I trying to do? What are my intentions in this speech and in this action? We can listen to some crazy person on the subway and go, oh, they're crazy. But there is a logic to them. There is a reason they're there and living and acting in such a strange manner. Why is that? Every book you read, every TV show you watch is letters put down by a person for a reason. This may be more challenging in the days of AI now, where AI simply regurgitates what it's been told. And so instead of the wills and intentions of one person or a small group of writers, you have the words of thousands of people filtered through a system and presented as a single blank, easy to understand statement, where much of the nuance and history and depth is lost. But where came these ideas? When AI tells you a fact, when a person tells you a fact, what led up to the claim that that is a fact? It can be very simple to deny other people's opinions and ideas. They don't know what we're talking about. They're wrong. They're making that up. But even if they are making that up, even if they're lying, why are they lying? Why are they making it up? Why, if they are mistaken, do they believe what they believe? Why are they saying this thing? Don't ignore what's going on and think it's not important. It is. Everything is important. Everything has intention behind it. The random news you hear is because of people. It's individuals making up the system. Figure out the aim of each move. And in speech, know the meaning of every word. What is being said or done, and why. Especially for Marcus, this is important, right? He is the emperor, and there's always someone telling him something, trying to gain from the system. It's like listening today to a company which releases a public statement. Who are they trying to gain something from? Is it the politicians? Is it the regulators? Is it their customers? Is it themselves? Did the enemy have a crisis of faith? It's a question to ask yourself. So here in 11 says, to a rational creature, natural acts are also reasonable ones. To this, I think of science. Right? To a rational creature, natural acts are also reasonable ones. Marcus has this idea that, in us slumbers the whole of reason. That the laws of the rocks and the trees and the gods and the books and the popes and whatnot is the same as that which is in me. I am a human being, and I can understand the trees, the stars, the wolves, the Germans, all of these. I can, if not communicate effectively back and forth with dolphins, you at least understand, oh, that's joy, or they're hungry, or they have a family, or they're angry, or they're sad. It can be something as simple as why does a hermit crab have a shell? Or then you see crabs lining up and trading shells, and all of a sudden you realize what was natural, accidental, crab in a shell, actually has this whole system behind it. And everything's complex somehow. We can look out on a grassy field or look out on a street full of trash in an inner city and think, this is all random. Just wind-swept seeds or beer bottles that end up here. But all these seeds came from someplace. All those beer bottles were drunk by a person, were aluminum dug up from the ground. Have colors painted on them, were bought by somebody, dropped off, ended up here, and where will they end up in 5 years or 10 years? What happens to them? It's the same with people. We think, oh, this is just random. Someone's crazy. Someone's odd. If someone's greedy, well, these are all natural actions. I want more food. I'm angry. But they have a reason behind them. So instead of ignoring, again, it's about not ignoring a part of the world. It's about seeing and attempting to understand all that you see, all that you experience. Don't let any of the truth pass you by, and imagine to yourself that so much of the world is a lie. Okay. 17, he says, happiness is the inner deity, the goodness of pure mind. What are you doing here, imagination? Get out. I don't need you. You're just a bad old habit. Really, I'm not angry with you. I just want you to go. I think what he's kind of saying here is don't daydream. It feels great to daydream, right? Like, I've done this. You sit on the bed, think about your happy time or a happy place, or when you visited here, or when you were playing with your friends, or, you think about a favorite book you read once or a TV show. You have some music playing in the background, perhaps, or you're just vibing along. For Marcus, these activities are maybe relaxing. Maybe you do it to rest. But we, or at least I do as a human being, right, tend to perhaps spend more time than I ought in daydreams or nightmares, as the case may be. Sitting there and thinking, oh, what if I do this once in a while. What if I won the lottery? What would I do? I do this and this and this, and I could donate money here. I could spend money there. I could start this business. If I built myself a house, and I had unlimited funds, what would it be like? I'd have a tower somewhere. I'd be in the woods. I'd have a room with secret passages in it, that sort of thing. That makes you happy, or at least you pretend that you're happy because you can dream of these things. You can draw. You can spend 3 hours drawing out your snow fort. It's much more fun to draw a snow fort out than to build one in the cold. But this, for Marcus, is not how you achieve true happiness, because eventually the dreams of the day fade. The moments, the drawings, they get put in a box and forgotten about. Oh, you pull them out years later and you go, oh my gosh, I remember this. It was so much fun doing this. I spent hours planning out my D&D campaign or whatnot that I never actually got to do. Or, I used to go in and I'd make mods for Final Fantasy Tactics. I have pages written about, okay, I'll do this and this and this change and that change, and then sometimes I did it, sometimes I don't, and once in a while I go through my papers and I go, oh, I did this artwork or had this idea, or done a poem, and it's great, but it doesn't sustain. And for Marcus, it is the sustaining, I feel, that really matters. It is the ability to be content no matter what, that outside powers cannot disrupt your inner life. When you're daydreaming, what happens all the time, someone wakes you up. He was by the window, so he dreamed. Until they woke him up and made him sit in the middle of the room. It was very drear then and bored. If you're being tortured or killed, or you're responsible for soldiers and to keep them from being tortured or killed, do you have time to spend daydreaming? How guilty do you think you could possibly feel if you took a few weeks to just not do your job all that well, and then you hear the barbarians were invaded and some town has been burned, and you meet one of these town members? It's a mother whose son is dead because you didn't do your job quite right. How would that disturb your daydreams? But for Marcus, if he's done his best, this isn't disturbing him as terribly, right? He didn't fail. He was simply unable, and these are very different terms. Marcus has to come to terms with his limitations of power. For all that he's an emperor, he cannot command human beings to uphold their oaths, to refrain from attacking, to not be greedy, not chase their own dreams or nightmares. He's not angry at imagination. He just has something to do. And I think that is partially what makes Marcus a little bit different than so many other people I know, and myself even, that he feels he has a purpose. He is the emperor. It is his job to protect the empire, to protect his people, to protect his nation, to uphold what he can in these troubled times. But, of course, if you don't have that, then it's much easier to daydream. Although you might end up 10 years later going, wow, I spent a lot of time daydreaming and about creating my book, or about making my philosophy, or about drawing this artwork piece, and then I never actually did it. As for me, I think I have a more positive view of daydreams myself. The one thing that daydreams can do is either show you who you are and what you want, or they can allow your imagination to flow in odd ways. The number of times I've had a daydream and I've sort of snapped out and written down a line of philosophy or poetry. I go to sleep, then I wonder, then I wake back up, and sometimes I'll sit down in the bed and sort of pass out for an hour or two. And when I'm awake, I don't even know really what I've written. And eventually I pass out, go to sleep, I wake up, and I go, oh, I've written down like 4 lines of philosophy, and 2 of them don't make any sense. One of them is something I've written down before, and one out of the 4 is a new idea that maybe I never would have had if I hadn't gone through that daydream. And if I was responsible for the lives and deaths, directly responsible for the lives and death of many, then I would find it harder to daydream, I think. Okay. So 18 here, he says, is it change that you fear, but what can happen without it? What is dearer to nature or more vital to the universe? And especially in our own lives, we don't want things to change. We want them to remain the same. The same friendships, the same restaurants open, the same games we play, the same culture to always remain. And we try to hold on to that. Then the world shifts and moves. Games go out of print, or they get power leveled. You have friends that get involved in their own lives, or who move away, or one of you outgrows the other, in a certain manner. Or you live in a city and you realize one day you're too small, that you are too large for the city, or the city's too small for you, or that you just don't fit. And what we try to do is hold on to that, with a life that you want to keep the same, keep safe, but you cannot keep it safe. You cannot keep your culture or your history or your country or your ideals, your religion safe and immune from change forever. If you do, then that's just the same as dying. That's just the same as never doing anything again. Just the same as being a rock. And it is, for Aurelius at least, against nature, against reason. We are moving beings. So, for all the fact that he's an emperor, and that he's ancient Roman, and that I'm not sure he really is all that, liberal or changeworthy. The idea, at least, is there for not being too conservative. The idea, at least, is there for perhaps taking your time, understanding reasonably how you want the world to change, and doing it in a slow, measured fashion, a reasonable fashion, but not doing it at all just leads to changes happening that you don't expect or control or realize. And if you don't move the world, someone else will. Perhaps might be the lesson there. So in 20, he says, one thing alone troubles me, the thought that I might do what my true self does not will, or that I might do what it wills in the wrong way or at the wrong time. And I think this is rather interesting. The thought that I might do what my true self does not will, or that I might do what it wills in the wrong way at the wrong time. Let's say we recognize who we are and what we want and our powers, our desires, and we choose to act in such a way as to match our powers to our desires and do everything properly and reasonably. And then we find ourselves in the midst of a situation which requires action, and we are frozen. We can't say anything. We can't do anything. We just sit there like a dumb log. Or we open our mouths and we say the most stupid, inane words ever to come out of a mouth. And you're telling yourself, you're screaming at yourself on the inside, whispering with like a desperation, oh my God, man, do something different. Or, oh my gosh, what the hell did I just say? Why did I say that? What am I doing? Like when you know you're being stupid, but you can't help it. He's like, that, I don't want that. He's very worried about that. Keep control of yourself. Keep calm. Keep centered. Don't freak out. And try to remain calm, directed. Because, or that I might do what it wills in the wrong way at the wrong time. You know, let's say you have a girl you like. And you're standing in front of her and going, oh my gosh, don't say anything. Don't blurt out your feelings, you know, at the wrong time, the wrong way. It has to be proper and polite. You know, or you're standing in front of a boss and you're angry at him and he's just jabbering on and on and on. And you're just like, oh my gosh. I really hope I don't snap at this person. Don't say the wrong thing. Because if I do, I have to deal with that and that and that. Okay, and then I'm probably gonna get fired, and then I'm gonna lose my house, and then I'm gonna have to move back in with my parents, and that's a whole big problem. And okay, and you're thinking about all these issues, you're reasoning it out, how I should not snap back at my boss when he's like blaming me for an issue that wasn't my fault. And you're trying to control yourself, and then all of a sudden you blurt it out, right? And you know you should say that you like the girl, or you should say that this critique is unfair. But there's a time and a place for that to be effective. There's a way to speak in order to ensure that it is in accordance with politeness, in order to communicate the information effectively without having it all blow up in your face automatically. So again, remain calm, but not so calm that you daydream or you disassociate. Pull yourself back to the present. You are here and now, not so worried about the future, not so worried about the past, but in a sort of very thoughtful Zenish state, right? Remain present here and exercise reason well. Have trust in yourself. Because I think we can do this for certain. We want to say something, and we're always looking for the right way, or the right manner, or the right means, and then it turns out time is up. There's no more ways to communicate. There's no more time to speak, and the chances you thought you had are gone. You know, to say goodbye to a grandparent, or to listen to a story, to ask about a story. You know, what is that? What is that? You know, where did you come from? You know, why don't you talk to this one sister? What's the whole bit? And you learn things secondhand sometimes, but you thought there'd always be time, and there wasn't. That can happen too. We can paralyze ourselves because we're searching for perfection, but good, for Marcus Aurelius, is good enough, as long as it is matched with reason, I feel. And again, this comes from him being an emperor, right? He cannot be perfect all the time. He knows that. So if he takes forever to come to a decision, and that decision may as well just never have been made, you know? Better he does something than nothing. Although he does worry about it. Okay, so like 27. Don't hanker after what you don't have. Instead, fix your attentions on the finest and best that you have, and imagine how much you would long for these if they weren't in your possession. Okay. So again, let's say you like a girl. Or a boy. And you're thinking, oh, if only I spoke another language. If only I had a degree. If only I had a job. If only I had, muscles. If only I was smart. If only I looked good. If only I got a haircut yesterday instead of showing up in front of his house like this. And we're always hankering after what we don't have, what we can't achieve. Well, I was thinking I'm bad, I'm not perfect, I should do this and I should do this, and maybe like, oh, I should have a good looking body or something, right? And you're thinking, you're like, oh God, I know I told myself I was gonna work out, but then I like never did. And now I'm fat and ugly. Then you're always we'll focus on the bad bits. But what if we focus on the good bits? Hey, I've got both my legs and both my arms. Hey, my hair is messy, but I'm not bald. Hey, I'm a little overweight, but I'm also not round as a beach ball. Hey, I'm not very strong. My arms are noodles. But I can lift 20 pounds over my head. I can. I may not be able to do weightlifting, but I can, for example, play tennis, or I can play video games. I can type well, right? I can type well. And imagine if you didn't have that. Imagine if you had no legs. Imagine if you had no arms. Imagine if you couldn't see or you couldn't speak. Imagine if your hands hands are like, okay, they're short, they're stubby, they're dirty, they're covered with grease, they're not very strong, they're kind of small. One of them's a different size than the other one. I forgot to cut my nails again. Hey, you have 5 fingers. You have this, at least. You have something. And what can you do with that, right? You may not be able to speak another language. You may not have a degree. You may not be very smart, but can you write poetry? Can you engage in conversation? Can you be curious? Can you be respectful? Can you be polite? Can you try? Or do you have a closed off mind, right? I think we've all met those people. They're geniuses. You talk to them like, okay, this guy is smart, but also an ass. And you're like, okay, or there'd be jobs you can have, right? Hey, I don't have a great job like that person does. And then you realize, oh, he also works 65-hour weeks. I wish I was a surgeon. Oh, but here's another surgeon. But you talk to a surgeon, you're like, I talked to it like one of the surgeons that did my hernia surgery on it. My first thought was like, this guy is tired. This guy is like exhausted, was the feeling I got. And how much of that is true, how much of that is my own presumptions and whatnot is debatable. But I've known those folk who hey, they've got a good paying job, they've got a wife, they've got kids, they've got a car, they've got a vacation boat, and they're also just not happy, or they drink too much, or their life is their job, and once they retire, they die in like 3 years, or they have kids, but their kids hate them, right? There's trade-offs to everything. And when he says, focus on what you do have, it's, to me, a bit of a, instead of always hankering for new things and new things and new things, like I buy a new gaming system, I buy a flute or a violin, and I say, I'm going to practice that, I'm going to get better, and I'm going to improve myself. Meanwhile, I have an Irish tin flute that I never even bothered to learn about. I'm going to buy a new book, a new story. Meanwhile, I have 50 that I haven't really read or that I've read a long time ago, and I could read them again. I can think I should sit down and make a YouTube video which is perfect and good, has wonderful lighting, effects, where I've written down the whole script and I've practiced it right, and I've used a great video camera, and I'll make it perfect. well, then you never do that. I mean, part of the reason I'm here right now doing this is because I've got a cheap webcam and a microphone I got like 3 years ago that I finally ended up using and whatnot. And it's just about, okay, let me do what I can with what I have. You know, I'm trying to follow some of Marcus Aurelius's advice here. Fix your attentions on the finest and best that you have. What can I do? I can stand in front of a camera and I can jabber for a couple hours every single day. Maybe it doesn't go anywhere, maybe nothing happens, but at least I'm doing something. At least I'm trying, in some manner to change by using what I have, by looking at myself and going, okay, instead of me working on my Baldur's Gate 3 builds and then going online and reading people who have metagamed the whole system out and realizing, oh, this is people who know so much more than me. I'll just copy what they did. And so it's better. I could spend my life working and improving. And I think I've done that to an extent. Let me chase after what I don't have. Because you don't feel like what you have is enough or isn't right, or you haven't exercised the skills in the correct manner. Right? I read books and I know things, but I also make mistakes. I also blurt out words which are wrong or bad, or I stumble. How many times have I been speaking this and I feel a hiccup rising, or I mispronounce a word? There were a bunch of Greek names in here: Euripides, Antisthenes, Arcanians, Antiope, Chrysippus. I don't know if I pronounced those correctly. And I could stop, I can go research, okay, how do I say these right? Let me get the accent right. Let me be perfect. Let me chase after what I don't have. But instead, I use what I got. I can read the words and I can comment on them, and let me try and fix that. I'm not good at music, flute, or the violin, because I never actually cared enough to sit down and focus on improving my abilities with them. But what can I do? I can rhyme and sign and make lines across my mind where I use ideas which are strange and new so that I could find a pathway through to you. I can do that. And perhaps I should, utilize what I can. So, again, this comes from, I think, Marcus's experience. He was an emperor, but most importantly, he was a war leader. He was out there on the boundaries of the empire leading armies. And when you're in the middle of the Gaulish woods with Germans from over the Rhine screaming down on you with their swords drawn, you can think, I wish I had a wall. I wish I had ballistas. I wish I had placed men on that hill, But, wishing, wanting, you don't have time. What do you got? Well, the pack train is way back there, but I've got some scouts in those woods. I've only got 2 lines that can manage to withhold this charge, but I do have, some trained soldiers, to the west. So let's see, what I give the order to hold the line on the east and let them through on the west so that they can be hit by my reinforcements, sort of idea. Who knows? You don't have time to build ballistas, for example. We're running low on beans. Well, guess we're going to use up our peas faster than we thought. I wish I had a messenger bird to, release I can release a dove or a raven or whatnot to fly and send this message to so-and-so. but I don't have that. What I've got is a guy on a horse. Well, send him, use what I can. Instead of, you're fighting and then you're cut off from a section of your army, and that section has something important. Oh gosh, I wish I had that important thing. I could better fight and spend my soldiers to grab that important thing from the supply train. Instead, use what you got. MacGyver the situation. And that's what I'm attempting to do in my own poor way. Just start speaking and learn what you have to say. Right? So going back to, liking a girl or not. Hey, there's this trope which you see in films and movies sometimes. Like the girl that is so attractive, no one asks her out, and then the nerd asks her out, and she's like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll go with you to the prom." The nerd is like, "Why on earth would you go with me to the prom?" And she's like, "Well, no one ever asked me before. No one ever asked me." And it turns out there's a whole bit there. Maybe what you have is the right thing for the job. Maybe your voice or your reason, or hey, you're not a jock, but you know math. Or hey, you're not very good at math, but you can fix a car. And that doesn't mean that the jock or the nerd or the beautiful cheerleader is perfect. It just means that they're better for some situations than others. And you could sit there thinking, oh my gosh, I'm terrible at math. I'm never going to pass this class. Or you find yourself a tutor. You could think, oh my gosh, I'm getting beat up by a bully. What am I going to do? Or you could find yourself a friend. Go find the toughest, meanest football player who you know is doing bad in math and say, I would like some help with my little problem, and you would like some math tutoring. I think we have a deal here. Again, something from TV shows. No, you're a cheerleader no one asks out. Who knows if that's even real, right? But in the story, in the movie at least, hey, go find some kid and ask them out. Make the first move instead of being stuck in a gender stereotype. Maybe it'll work. Because it's better than doing nothing. It's better than years later sitting there going, man, I got nothing. I didn't do anything when I had the chance, and now the chances are over, and still sitting here pining for chances that never were. Why? Because it would require me to do something and I didn't. And the flaw is me, and I'm bad and I'm wrong, and I better find this new thing to fix me. I better start working out, or I better get healthier, I better get a job. And you just keep chasing and chasing and chasing, and you never achieve. Because instead of using what you have, you've left yourself behind. Chasing after a ghost that you've made up entirely in your mind. But at the same time, don't become so attached to these things that you should be distraught if you were to lose them. Can I speak? Do I use my mind? Hey, my dad had a stroke and lost his ability to do calculus. What if I have a stroke and lose my ability to speak? What if I'm in an accident one day and I lose both my legs? I'm less than what I was. I mean, straight up. I had the ability to walk, or I had the ability to speak, and I am less than what I was. But I still remain who I am. And what can I do with that? There is a kid in my town that used to play baseball with no legs. He was born without legs. He walked around on his arms. He'd sort of sit there on the dirt, swing the bat, and run over to first base. And, use what he had. Was able to do something. And have you ever tried to do that yourself? Try to walk on your just your arms for hours a day, it's good luck if you can do it for 5 minutes before your wrists start killing you. And this was 20 years ago. But I still remember it because I go, oh wow, it's something, right? He's using what he has. And perhaps we can make that more excellent. So even if I lose certain abilities, even if I, become ugly or grow old or grow foolish in one way or another, that what I am, and it doesn't mean I'm nothing. It just means that the something I have to figure it out. Right? If I know what I have in my abilities, then I can begin to use them to the best of my abilities. Leads, to 28. Seek refuge in yourself. The knowledge of having acted justly is all your reasoning inner self needs to be fully content and at peace with itself. I did my best, and then I died. And that is how Marcus Aurelius finds his pride. Okay, succeed or fail, it's all going to be forgotten. Everything dies. All these empires disappear. I might lose all my teeth. But while I was here, I did the best I can, and that is the best anyone, even gods, can ask for. Obviously, that's reasoning. You cannot ask for the impossible, because the impossible cannot be achieved, so I will achieve the best that is possible. I will do the best that I can. And this is as close to divinity or perfection as it is possible to get, so why should I worry about the gulf between goodness and perfection? Worry about the gulf between goodness and best goodness. Okay, so 33, on pain. Unbearable pain ends in death. Those that linger and persist are bearable. I think this is kind of interesting. Right? Hey, am I in pain? Does life suck? Do I have a heartache or a headache, or have I lost my job? I've been disgraced. I'm being tortured in some prison somewhere. I can't bear it. I want to die. I couldn't survive another day. And then you do. You get up every morning thinking, this is it. I couldn't. If one more thing goes wrong in my friggin' life, I may as well just end it. And that one more thing goes wrong, and you continue, and you continue. And it turns out that pain, for all its terribleness, is not unbearable. And how do you know this? Because you are bearing it, because you are alive, because you keep going. And it's only when it's unbearable. Well, who cares about it being unbearable? You'll be dead. If you literally can't bear the pain, then you're going to step through the door of stone and be gone. You're going to step into the door of sleep and the pain will pass while you heal. If you can. You're going to step into the door of madness. You're not even going to know what pain is, really. That's from the Name of the Wind, I think. So, for Marcus, remember, he has lost most of his sons have been killed. His empire is falling apart, suffering plagues, rebellions, invasions. And every time he goes home, every new piece of news he hears is just bad and bad and bad. And he could give up. He could retire to Rome, forget about the borders. He could ignore the rebellions and let the Eastern Empire go. He could sail off into the sunset on a ship of his own and leave the entire system behind in the dead of night. But he doesn't. And I'm sure what must have happened is he gets hit, right? This piece of news, that piece of news. Someone dislikes him. He trusts someone who then betrays him, and He's hit, he's reeling, he's shocked, he's in pain. Takes a deep breath. And he goes, I'm not dead. This sucks. Life sucks. But I can bear it. I can do something with it. I can still do my best. He takes the hits and he gets back up. He's knocked down again and again and he gets back up. Which leads to what is my favorite line in the entire book. 56. Imagine that you have died and received the gift of a new life. Imagine you're dead. Imagine that yesterday you died and you got isekai'd into a new life today. How do you act? What do you do? You get isekai'd and you're in a new place and there's new magic, there's new possibilities, there's new friends to be made. Your entire old life is left behind, it's gone. No one remembers it. You don't look the same, you don't feel the same, you don't have the same powers, you are different. The world is different. The purpose of life is different. And do you take it slow and easy? Do you find a great dark lord to defeat? Do you start farming? Are you a blacksmith? Are you an alchemist? What do you do? And when we think of isekaiing, right, of being born into another world, we picture that other world as one where magic exists and dragons. Or we picture like someone from an isekai, a magic world, coming to our mortal world and finding in our mortal regular world magic and wonder, or they pass through 1,000 years from the Heian era or whatnot. And like, oh my gosh, you have cell phones. What are these? And cars. They pull out some knight that pulls out a sword and tries to fight the car because they think it's some great big beast making all this noise. You have swimming pools and skyscrapers, and oh my gosh, it's so amazing. You go back and you introduce them to food. We think of dying and being reborn into a new world as something where we can leave our entire old life behind. Something where we don't know the rules and magic is now possible and we're blessed by the gods. We have, skill trees and whatnot. But put it another way. What if you died and were reborn in this place 1,000 years in the past? Or 1,000 years in the future? Maybe you didn't die, you were just teleported. You may as well have died. Right? If you were reborn into 1,000 years from the future today, what would you do? What would you say? How would you experience it? Would you go around looking at, oh my gosh, look at all the amazing things we've done? Or would you think, oh, people are still the same? We still have 9 to 5 work days 1,000 years later for who knows what possible reason. We haven't invented interstellar travel. Maybe we've got a colony on the moon. Right? Do you go, oh, this isn't what I thought it was? If you go into prison for 5 years or 7 years and 10 years or 20 years and you get out and you go, wow, life is still kind of the same. It kind of sucks. Or do you go, oh my gosh, look at the amazing things we've made. Look at the changes. Look at the possibilities. I guess that's kind of what I wonder about. So this is a new outlook on life, right? If you are Marcus Aurelius and life sucks in many ways, you're an emperor, so life is good for you and is good for you. But imagine you were like the emperor's wife. Life is better for you. You don't have a whole lot of responsibilities. Imagine you're the emperor's cousin. Imagine you are like 7th in line for the throne and you're some rich noble in Rome. Maybe you look after the family business. Maybe you're important in the area. Maybe you have your social duties. Maybe you engage in court. Maybe you make sure the population is loyal to the emperor. But you aren't the guy at the top. If Rome falls, it's not your fault, it's his fault. If there's death and destruction and invasion, you just follow your orders. You do what you can, but ultimately you're not the emperor. You're not a god. I think we all recognize this, right? We are partially responsible for the world. Every single one of us is partially responsible for the way the world is, but we're not entirely responsible. We're not in charge. We're not the president. We're not a senator. We're not the mayor. We're not the boss in our job. We're not even the boss in our family. But what if you died? What if you died and were reborn and you weren't a part of that family anymore? You didn't have that job. You weren't a part of the country. What if you were you and you alone again today, and it was your life and your death in the future? It's a recognition of freedom. For Marcus, he wakes up and he says, I choose to be emperor today. I choose to follow my duty. I choose to do what I can for my fellow man. But he doesn't have to do that. It says something about him that he continues to choose this. But for us as well, when we go to sleep and we wake up, what do we have to do? Like seriously, 100% of life, what do we actually have to do? Very little. If you've got a child or a spouse or an elderly mother you look after, then maybe you got something. Maybe you feel you're stuck. But only in that little way. It's like going to school. Go to school and you study and you work, but you do have free time. You have the ability to do something else once in a while. And if we take that to its extreme, really, you can wake up, you can abandon your family, you can abandon your job, you can abandon your duties, you can go live in the woods, you can become homeless, you can stop going to school. But what do you choose to do? Do you better yourself? Do you not? Do you give up on your fight for promotion or your fight for learning? Or do you continue the work? Conversely, and this happens to me literally every night, I'm so tired. I'm so tired of everything sometimes. And you just want to lay in bed and breathe in and breathe out. Listen to some music, maybe pet the cat, and try not to pass out before you finish your work or your speech or your poetry or reading a few pages of this book, right? Because you told yourself you were going to do that. But man, you could spend 14 hours in bed. You really could. And do you wake up tomorrow and go, I'm going to spend 14 hours in bed? Or do I wake up tomorrow and go, I'm going to write another 500 words. I'm going to stand up and talk for another hour about a book I read. I'm going to do something, and it's not perfect, but it's good enough. Just because yesterday sucked doesn't mean tomorrow will. And perhaps that's a true measure of a person, not what they choose to never do, but what do they choose to do again and again and again. Don't judge a person by their worst day or their best day. Judge them by their normal day. Judge yourself by your normal day. And slowly claw your way up the chasm of hell or purgatory by doing a little something every day. You know? As you've died and received the gift of a new life. Live it, full of wondrous gratitude and sweet accord with nature. At least I have a chance. I didn't pass away in my sleep. I didn't have an aneurysm. I wasn't hit by a car. And tens of thousands of people yesterday, tens of thousands of people today will never wake up again. Will never have a chance to change. Will have their life ripped from them by accident. Will be struck by illness or lightning. Will be hunted or hurt by another human being and have to recover from that. Instead, me, I go to sleep, I wake up, and I choose whatever I want. There are consequences to bad choices, but every choice has a consequence as well. And you for Marcus Aurelius, you can't control these, what other people do, what happens to you. You can only live your own life. You can only direct your own self. And instead of feeling sorry all the time or disgusting or ugly or stupid, at least be good. So for Marcus Aurelius 58, he says, why not leave these emotional outbursts to those who are controlled or distracted by them? Concentrate instead on taking advantage of the crisis, using it as raw material with which to build something beautiful and good. Just remember that in the end you must approve of your own actions, that the aim of the action also matters. So we as human beings get wrapped up in emotions. We are angry or sad, and we work to fulfill the needs of those emotions. This is partially where I tend to disagree with Marcus. And he says, look clearly and understand what's going on, without emotion, totally with reason. And at least for me, emotion is part of reason. It colors our reason. It decides whether we feel insulted or whether we feel that somebody was trying to insult us when they speak to us in a certain way, for example. At the end of a long day at work, a phrase that I heard when I went in at 10 o'clock is a whole lot more annoying when I hear it for the 45th time that day at 6 o'clock. So when he says leave these emotional outbursts behind, he means don't become overwhelmed by that fact, by your emotions. Instead, see them clearly. Not just like see the world clearly, but see yourself clearly. If anger causes me to see the world in a red haze, right, then seeing myself clearly involves me seeing myself clearly seeing the world in a red haze, right? Me knowing what my emotions are and how I react to them. I'm not very good in crowds with loud music blasting. And because I know this, I at least have the opportunity to moderate my reactions and feelings, to know that I've been in like Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments and whatnot, and there's so lot, and I gotta play the game, play the round, then step outside, put on some headphones, listen to music for 5-6 minutes, recite some poetry out into the clear air and sort of center myself again. And I do that because I know how I need to act to fix my own reactions. So instead of denying emotions, it is recognizing how your emotions work with you, what your flaws are, but also what your strengths are. And you try to fix yourself, you improve yourself, but also you work with what you got. Now, I'm better with crowds than I used to be. And there are things I'm scared of. Like don't ask me to drive a car or a backhoe. But put me in front of 1,000 people and ask me to talk, and I can do that. And we all have our strengths and weaknesses. We all have our fears and hopes. Use them instead of hoping you can be as perfect as someone else. what do you have that you can do? It's not perfect, but neither are you. And neither is anyone else. 61. Living is more like wrestling than dancing. You have to stay on your feet, ready and unruffled, where blows are being rained down on you, sometimes from unexpected quarters. And this is, I think, sort of the case for everybody. No one on this entire earth has a life which is blessed in every way and every moment. Everyone deals with struggles, with loss, with pain, with failure. No one wins all the time. Even if they think they do, even if they appear to do. That's an illusion. That's me misunderstanding something. That's me not seeing their life entire. Sort of the argument here. And it's ties into 65. Do not feel for misanthropes what they feel for mankind. It's like and the blows people take are different. The struggles I face are not the struggles someone else faces. And so they may dislike me because I haven't had faced their struggles. You don't know what it's like for me. You haven't had it as hard as I have. I'm like, no, I don't know exactly what it's like for you. You haven't had it as hard as I haven't had it as hard as you have, but you haven't had it as hard as I have. You don't know what you don't know exactly what it's like for me. And I know my worries and struggles may seem small or inconsequential to you, but they are not for me. And some things you tell me, I'm like, what's the big deal? So what? Someone insulted you. So what? A person said that to you. So what? You didn't get the job. Hey, there's another chance tomorrow. And they'll look at me like, you don't have to pay rent. You don't know the struggle. You don't have diabetes. You don't know the struggle. I'm like, yeah, I don't. But I'm also not going to stand here and say, you know what, my life is perfect and I'm so sad and sorry for that. My life has been great. Like, no, look at Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the Roman Empire, of the Roman Empire, literally the most powerful man on the entire planet during his lifetime. All but one of his sons are dead. He has to deal with plague. He's running around. He's talking about, he's writing in his personal books here, right? Look at the past with this endless succession of empires and you see the future. Everything fades. He's writing about, soon you will have forgotten everything and everyone will have forgotten you. He's writing about, let the body guard itself against pain, but the mind that alone can apprehend fear and pain does not itself suffer, does not incline to acknowledge either. Right? He's being stoic. He's saying, look, if the pain travels through me and the pain releases away from me and I am no longer in pain because it is the pain of the body, not the mind, and it is not enough to control me, and my back may hurt. My knees are giving out. I've got gangrene in one hand. I've got sword cuts and scars. And these are small things. I'm still me. Look at all the others who are so much more unfortunate, right? So what if I'm ugly? At least I have all 10 fingers and all 10 toes. So what if I'm a coward? Or so what if I'm better at fighting than speech giving? Use what you can. Use what you have. Don't envy other people, and don't let them hate you, and don't also, I think, don't accept their judgment over you. Just because someone has a tough life and a horrible life and a life which has suffered from injustice does not mean that they are perfect. It does not mean it does not mean that there is not an exchange of views to be had. What's the saying? Too much humility is pride. Too much humility is enough pride. and too much pride is vanity. Balance your life. See it in a clear manner. Don't let yourself be controlled or labeled as better or worse. See who you are and stand by that, come what may. It says, right, 68. Live freely and joyfully, even if you are surrounded by those who plot and shout against you. Even if wild beasts claw away the soft clay that encases you. Now your theoretical judgment will say, this is the reality of the situation regardless of what others may think or say. And their practical sense will say to the opportunities that arise, there you are, I was looking for you. For every moment provides us with opportunities to exercise the virtues of neighborliness and thought, or in other words, to practice the art of being human and divine. All that happens is of use to gods or men. Nothing is new or unmanageable. Everything is familiar and serviceable. Think of it in this way. If you can understand it, you can get a handle on it. If someone, beggars or those who've been discriminated against or those who have suffered injustice come to you and ask for help, for praise, and you don't really understand why they're so mad or exactly what happened to them, or you think maybe they deserved it a little, or you're going and thinking like, okay, this situation is more complicated than you think it is. That doesn't mean that you dismiss their concerns out of hand. And the same with you. They're going to look at you and they're going to go, you're the mighty emperor. You're the person in charge. You're the president. Why can't you fix this? It is within your power. Give this edict. I've looked at the laws. I've heard about this other thing you did. Just do it. And the emperor or the president may go, it's complicated. I have my duties and my rights and my obligations and my understanding of the world. And for Marcus, it's all about trying to seek clarity in the midst of these confusing conversations about power and choice and good and bad. What's right, what's wrong? Who decides? I decide. Why do I decide? Because the responsibility is mine, because the actions are mine, because I'm the one who dies and lives alone. Other human beings may teach me and instruct me and help me, and they may, in the same way, lie and obfuscate and hurt or attack me. What am I to do with that? I am not to trust in mankind. I am to trust in reason. I am to trust that they are like me and that I am like them, that we are brothers and sisters with all the world and all of nature. Learn from the rocks and the trees and the birds and the bees and the books and the steel. Why? Because you can see them, you can feel them, you can get a handle upon them, and they may not understand you all the way, and you may not understand them, but you can clasp hands. You can reach across the gulf of the intellect and achieve something. Not perfection, perhaps, but goodness. So if we are in talks with people, if we're in a situation with the emperor, the president, or just someone, a peon on a job, or a boss, a guy on the street, a gal in a school, what do you do in these situations? And I think when he talks about opportunities, he's saying that, again, isekai your life. You've died, you've lived, and now you don't know what happens next. You don't know who these people are around you. How many strangers do you meet each day? How many weird videos do you run across? Who you could comment or subscribe or read what they have to say, or read what somebody else has to say about them, or talk with an idea that they mentioned to someone you know, and who knows what this will lead to. Many times, nothing at all. But not every time. Not everything in the world is so set in stone to the degree in which we often believe it to be, or the degree in which we act it to be. I was on the light rail a few days ago, and I put on my headphones. I sat down and stared at my phone. I ignored everything that was going on around me. I said, you know what? There's nothing interesting here. I'm not going to have any conversations. I'm not going to meet any interesting people. I'm not going to learn something. It's just on the light rail. I've been on here hundreds of times before. I'll be on here hundreds of times again. I know what I'm dealing with. And you just go through life sort of wrapped up in your own world and your own job and your own friends. And there's so much more that might be out there. That's what I'm trying to do a little bit here, right? When I actually release these videos, maybe nothing will happen. Maybe it'll be like some of the things I've done before, like the books or the poems. One comment here or there, a few likes. The views keep going down and down until you get like 12 views on a short or something, and you just results in nothing. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll be something. And if I never take that opportunity, if I always sit in my room depressed and alone and tired and sad, then nothing will ever happen that isn't bad. Take the opportunities that are there. Try to see things clearly. Try to understand. And when you get into fights with people or people are angry at you, don't back away. Don't immediately become defensive. Try to understand that they are like you. The people watching this video are like me. We are able to clasp each other's hand. We're able to communicate and not command understanding, but achieve it anyway. A little bit each day. Now, all that happens is of use to gods or men. Nothing is new or unmanageable. Everything is familiar and serviceable. I'm trying to read some of these books and comment on the books, not in a manner which is practiced and sure, where I set out an essay and read it staring straight at the camera. Instead, I'm going through and I'm going, marking lines and going, this one's different, this one's different. What does this arise from me and through me and of me? What happens? What's every opportunity? What is taking every opportunity? And I could be perfect, or I could produce a 2-hour video every day. Both of these are actions to take. Both of these are options. It's just a matter of using what I have, right? Turns out I'm not very good at making perfect videos. I'm not very good at writing essays because I try to fix them, and all of a sudden it's 2 weeks later and it's still not right. But what I can do is I can stand here, I can read a book, and I can babble on. Tiene konverter sinne konverter non kuitenkin me virtuksen tärkeä sinne rattu som vargaltan sinne kädessä konverter niatos. I can babble on. That's what I can do. That's what I can do every single day, and it's the best I've got to say. So 73 here. When you have done something well and someone else has benefited from it, why do you crave yet a third reward as fools do who want to be thanked or be repaid? And this is something to really ask. I watch I listen really to poems on TikTok once in a while. A lot of them are sad. A lot of them are, at least the ones that show up in my feed, tend to be some girl talking about love or loss, or she's not enough, or she could have done better, or this friend or this person did something bad, or life is passing her by and there were chances she could have taken, and there's a part of me which reads these listens to these poems and goes, yeah, that's like me, or I that feels like me, and that is beautiful wording, and that is a brave person who is putting themselves out there. And then I make a few poems and I write them and I speak them, and then there's a comment here or there about how great it is, or this was interesting, and then it all kind of fades, and I go, why am I doing this? Right? What's the point? Because I'm not receiving a reward, financially or emotionally from this. What am I doing? And we often expect that third reward. We often expect some repayment of our actions, but that doesn't always happen either. So he has two bits here. When you have done something well and someone else has benefited from it. Well, I don't know if I've done something well. I never do. I have a very uncritical view of quality, because I can look at anything and figure out, oh, there's something to learn here. There's some beauty to be found. If I really try. I mean, I criticize plays and ideas and moments and disagree with these ideas and so on, or these people, or these politics, but I'm not blind to the fact that someone out there thinks they're great. Someone out there sees in a bad piece of music a good piece of music. Someone out there sees in arrogant, foolish, backwards political idea some forward-looking hope and wonderful renewal of the spirit of the nation. So that, I find, is sort of difficult. Once you've done something well, I don't know when I've done something well. Because someone else could look at my stuff and say, it comes from hell. And someone else has benefited from it. Well, who has benefited from my work? I can't even say, I feel like someone has helped. I feel like I've helped somebody. I feel like I've made a life better. I can't even say that. At the very least, at the very most, I've made my own life better. Right? The reward I get from speaking is its own reward. The journey is the destination sort of bit. Perhaps that's how I should see it. 74, he says, no one tires of being helped, and acts that are consistent with nature, like helping others, are their own reward. How then can you grow tired of helping others when by doing so you help yourself? Perhaps we can also ask, how then can you grow tired of helping yourself when by doing so you help others? Anyway, I don't know if I've done anything well. I don't know if there's going to be a reward. I don't know if anyone has benefited from it, but at least I've acted. At least I've done good. At least I can say I'm different than I was yesterday. I have changed in a small way because I created something, because I did something, because I challenged myself to a degree, and I overcame that challenge and that depression and that ridiculousity. That babble of words or screams in my head that makes me mad and lets me sit daydreaming in bed for hours and hours. Acts that are consistent with others, like helping others, are their own reward. Acts that are consistent with nature. And at least I can say or imagine that the poems and the speeches and the books are acts consistent with my nature, consistent with finding out my own nature and my own reason. For Marcus, it's duty in honor and contentment, but I have to make my own judgment. My own actions. He says in 75, even the most monumental events bearing the stamp of universal reason are fundamentally unintelligible. or the slightest subsequent event to become the logical and necessary consequence of the original impulse? Is there a space in between those? I think there is. I think there's a space for free will in between absolute chaos and complete predestination. And for me, this is how I remain calm in the face of life's little ups and downs. I at least am responsible for my own decisions and actions. I at least benefit or pay the price. I at least do well or badly on my own ability. And I don't know where it ends. I don't know where it goes. But nobody does. Nobody knows what the future brings. We make our best guesses, but then Timora sings.